Good evening. Welcome to the first meeting of the year 2021. The Design Review Board public meeting of January 14th is called to order. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and the health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Design Review Board meeting is being conducted virtually with no members of the public or staff present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed online at www.glendaleca.gov and is also being streamed on the local cable television channel, Channel 6. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Again, that number is 818-937-8100. City staff will be directing questions and comments to the appropriate person at that time. Current Design Review Board agendas are available on the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of decisions for tonight's cases will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of a decision of tonight's case must be appealed within 15 calendar days, and the appeal forms are also available online. Roll call. Board Member Caro. Board Member Minos.
Here, I'm here.
Thank you. Board Member Welch.
Here.
Board Member Smith.
Present.
And Chair Simonian.
Present.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before January 11th, 2021. And the next item on tonight's agenda is the election of chairperson. So every year we turn over a new chair. We'd like to thank Mr. Simonian for serving as chair last year during a very tumultuous year when obviously the virus struck and we went online. So thank you very much for chairing virtually towards the end. And at this time, I would ask for any nominations for the coming year. Is there a nomination? I believe Mr.
Who's going to nominate? Anyone?
Mr. Minos, yes, you're welcome to go ahead and nominate someone.
I would nominate Mr. Welch as chair of the Design Review Board.
Thank you, Mr. Minos. Is there a second?
I second it, but then who's going to write all the conditions?
I heard a motion for Mr. Welch, Board Member Welch, to be the next chair, and a second by Ms. Smith. In terms of a roll call, Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Minos?
Aye.
Mr. Simonian?
Aye.
And Mr. Welch?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Welch.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And your position actually starts this evening. So with that said, just a few other brief announcements. There is it skipped over the agendas and the minutes for the last meeting. The continued design review board minutes from October 22nd, 2020, which were continued to tonight's evening, are actually going to be continued once more to the next meeting on January the 24th. We do have the DRB meeting minutes from December 10th for your review. Those were part of the staff report. And if there's anyone who would care to make a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second it.
Motion by Board Member Simonian, a second by Board Member Minas. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Welch?
Yes.
Board Member Minas?
Yes.
And Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Forgive me, Chair Welch. I'll get used to by the end of the meeting calling you Chair. So the vote passes unanimously 4-0 to approve the minutes. Next item on tonight's agenda would be oral communications. I have no oral communication callers calling in. So that brings us to the Community Development Department updates. At this time, I would like to turn this over to Mr. Calvert for a brief announcement.
Great, thank you. Good evening, and first off, congratulations to the new chair, Mr. Welch. Mr. Simonian leaves some large shoes to follow, to fill, but I'm sure you will do a fantastic job regardless. There are a couple of things I wanted to provide and kind of an annual reminder of and a refresher going forward. After monitoring and observing some of these meetings over the past few months, I feel that some of these things should be addressed just to kind of give a refresher, a reminder, and make sure that we are fulfilling our obligations as a design review board and as staff. The first item I would like to touch on first, or to begin with, is the scope of the review board. The role of the design review board is to review the aesthetic qualities, site planning, massing, and scale, and the design of each proposal that's before them. Unless there's an environmental review that is required and presented before the board, this review is limited to the appearance of the projects that you see. There's site planning, things such as mass scale, compatibility, design, or general layout. And this is per the municipal code. The board is to discuss, and what I'd also like to remind is that the board is to discuss the implementation of these city policies, not the creation of new policies. We may not all agree with the existing policies that are in place, but this is the form of implementation policy discussion that is something that is taken up at a council level, or it can be taken up at a city council meeting that can be done through public comment or any city initiated work that we may take on. This also applies to the projects that you will now be reviewing as part of the downtown specific area. As a courtesy, we did have an applicant come and bring a project to you in advance of this change that has been made. So you've kind of gotten a taste of what that will be like. But council did make a change so the downtown specific projects do come before the design review board under an advisory capacity. It's something I do want to emphasize. Reviewing these projects that does not include traffic, design, building code, engineering, fire, life safety elements. And I'll discuss in a minute as to why. It is important to adhere to this purpose to avoid creating confusion with the applicants and the general public regarding the design direction that is given from the design review board through your conditions, as well as recognizing the difference between discretionary review, which is design review board, and the requirements that are set forth by codes such as building and life safety. This will really help us ensure that the comments that are provided are not conflicting with other necessary reviews and codes, and that the guidance that is provided is both pragmatic and achievable in light of those codes. All design and construction in this city is guided by additional codes that ensure constructability, health, safety, welfare. This is done through the International Building Code, the Fire Code, engineering requirements, a number of different elements. Projects cannot proceed with construction without those approvals, and I think that's important to note. You may see some of these things that have some concerns or some questions, which is fine to ask questions, but the comments about these elements, those are things that are handled through our code. through our zoning code, through our fire code, through a number of different mechanisms. They are not part of the design review board purview. If a project at a certain point finds itself significantly influenced and changed because they need to meet the requirements of a building code, of a fire code, of anything else, if there are significant changes, that project will come back before the design review board. So you're not just unleashing a design that is then at the whim and the will of these codes. If there is a significant change, they are required to come back to the design review board. I think that's important, one, to instill the confidence in you guys, to make sure that the comments that you're providing, you don't feel you're kind of leaving something on the table and leaving something overlooked or absent. In the coming months, we're going to be developing a checklist guide to help the design review board members to really help you walk through and ensure that the comments that you're providing are both relevant and within the scope and the purview of the board. This should provide guidance and assistance in allocating your comments into kind of the correct design-related categories, if you will, and avoid comments that are outside of the scope of the board. Furthermore, I really want to emphasize and make clear that the comments that are not within the purview of the design review board are not incorporated in staff comments. They're not incorporated in the conditions, nor any future reports. That means council appeals, anything else going forward, primarily because these are not things that are within the design review purview. They will be acknowledged at the meeting. We will inform you that those comments are outside of the purview. And this is really done to affirm those boundaries so that both the applicants and the public understand the role of the design review board and what it is that you are providing guidance on, and not letting those kind of blur the lines with things that are not under that purview of the design review board. Some of these have also presented some challenges with communication. If any board member feels that you do not have all the necessary information related to a design review case, then you should communicate that immediately, whether that's with the board liaison, via liaisonitis here, or the assigned case planner for the project. This will allow staff to collect this information that is relevant to the case and the board purview, but most importantly is to ensure that that information is distributed to all board members evenly. It is important that every board member has the same information to be able to review and provide feedback, conditions, other notes regarding a project. Attempting to reach out to other divisions or departments, particularly those that are not relevant or within the scope of the purview of the design review board, creates significant challenges. The first off is that when this has happened in prior instances, board members have presented information that is factually incorrect, misleading, or outside of the scope and purview of the board. This can also mislead the public on what elements are actually reviewed as part of the board, and can also lead to delays and confusion with our applicants, which are things that we are trying to avoid in the effort to create good customer service for our applicants. In these types of instances, that information is often obtained independently or through third-party resources. This is something we have advised the board about previously, to not obtain information from third-party resources. This is important because it's essential that all board members have the same information to review and to provide kind of even-keeled feedback that is fair amongst all board members. Excuse me. Again, all of this kind of leads to confusion. With that being said, you will see times where applicants will bring new information, and this may be after you've received your packet. This can come by way of new concepts, new ideas. It could be a new rendering because they wanted to exhibit their project a little bit better. It could be a change to a particular design solution, or maybe they've created alternatives to solutions that they've yet to figure out, or maybe they want feedback from the board. Ultimately, it is up to the board as a collective to decide as part of this meeting whether or not you would like to accept this additional information that has been received after the report has been distributed to you, or to not bring it into consideration. But that vote must be taken in the presence of this meeting. It cannot be decided via email. It cannot be requested via email. It is something that must be taken up as a collective amongst all board members and then voted upon. I also want to issue a reminder that staff is really here to serve as a resource, to lend our professional advice and our opinions. Having observed some of this communication in prior meetings and other forms of communication, this has not always been the case. The projects that are brought forth to you are required to satisfy zoning requirements beforehand. And they will be required to satisfy all building, engineering, life and safety codes prior to obtaining their permits. So the projects that you're seeing are design related, and they're supported by a professional opinion, often with staff members that have years of experience in this field. Having practiced architecture myself for several years and served on design review boards myself as well, a difference of opinions can obviously exist. Design is a subjective matter. It's an opinion-based matter, but that can also be done without resorting to being disrespectful or confrontational, whether that's amongst fellow board members or with staff. It's expected that we all work together as a team and as resources to one another, regardless of opinions or if they're different from one another. This is something I cannot emphasize enough. Based upon these items, I will be looking at some further options to improve this communication, in addition to the checklist that we'll be bringing forth in a couple months. This may include additional training or improvements to processes, but it's paramount that we remain professional and that we make sure that all information that is needed for the design review board is provided, and is provided to all members. From there, I'll open it up if there are any questions that any board member would like to have answered. I'd be more than happy to do so. Or we can also just schedule some one-on-one time to go over some of the board purview and just kind of serve as a refresher in addition to any of the future advanced training or checklists that we'll be providing.
Any comments from any board members? Questions? Thank you, Mr. Calvert. Appreciate the advice.
Great, thank you.
Okay, shall we move on to the next item on the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Chair Welch. We have board and commission members' comments at this time.
I would like to just thank the former chair, Mr. Simonian, for a year of exemplary service. And as Mr. Calvert noted, he has very big shoes for me to fill. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, or former Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. It was an absolute pleasure to serve this last year. It was a very different year. I think in the past I've been chairman twice or three times, and I got to say this was the most unusual year. Us going back and forth between virtual and in live meetings, but Steph did a really good job, I think, putting all the material together under the circumstances, sending us all the links and all the correspondence. It's just very difficult, and so thank you for everything. And we look forward to working with you, and look forward to you taking over our board and to steering us through this next fun year, which is going to be a very nice year for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any other board members? Okay, thanks. Let's move to old business, please.
Chair Welch, at this time, I would just like to make a brief announcement regarding two cases on the new business agenda. Those would be case number PDR 2008897. This is for a project located at 3830 Hillway Drive. There have been a number of issues that have come to light recently, and staff is requesting that the board take the matter off the agenda calendar and continue it to a date uncertain, so it will be renoticed. This obviously would be up to the board to grant that continuance.
Do we have to take a vote for that, or is it within the chair's discretion?
You are more than welcome to go ahead and make that decision for the board, or
okay.
Take an informal vote, that is.
Did anyone have any objections to that amongst the board members? Okay, we'll take it off the agenda and continue it.
Right, thank you. And the last item on tonight's agenda, which is a multifamily residential project at 2760 Hermosa Avenue, case number PDR 1823376, is also being continued, yet this one is being continued to a date certain. And this will be continued to the next hearing date on January the 28th, 2020. And as such, it is not going to be renoticed. So it is being continued for 2 weeks to the Design Review Board's date of January 28th.
With no objection, we'll continue the motion, the item.
Thank you. And that leaves 3 items on tonight's agenda, 2 for old business and 1 under the new business. And I would like to turn the meeting now over officially to Chair Welch.
Okay, we'll start with item number 8A, 1580 Glenmont Drive. So please take it away, Mr. Kiesel. Board Member Smith, you have a question?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to continue the item in light of the revised plans that we received yesterday that don't even that don't have deltas or clouds. So it takes a lot of time to figure out what the difference is.
I'm personally comfortable reviewing the file. I know in the past there's been many instances when designers, architects have brought forward information within the last day or two of a hearing, and such information is usually illustrated to us or even depicted to us at the hearing. But since we're not there, all we could do is review it electronically, which is what we're doing. And so just because something was turned in by the applicant in the last day or two, I don't think should prevent us from reviewing it, because if that's the case, we would have to throw out hundreds of cases in the past, because it's a very customary process. Mr. Chair, that's my take at least.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Smith, you had another point to raise.
Since, as I said, since the plans don't have deltas or clouds, and I don't have two giant computer screens for my personal use, I wasn't able to compare them against one another. So you all are welcome to hear this item. I think it's a without that benefit, this is a dangerous slope.
Well, I think we'll go ahead and hear the item. I don't hear a second to continue. So whether we take into account the revised design or not is another matter entirely, which we can discuss during our consideration. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kiesel.
Thank you. Just give me a second. Whoops, wrong one. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Roger, would you mind starting it?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, starting from what?
I have a question.
Yes, Board Member Minus, what's your question?
Yes, Ms. Welch. I have performed a geotechnical engineering investigation for this property, 1580 Glenmont. And I think I should recuse myself from decision-making on this project.
I think that is correct. So what do we do for that? Does Mr. Minus need to leave the hearing, actually?
Mr. Minos would have to leave the computer screen. Yes, he would have to leave the room that he's in right now. So
Okay. I'll just stop the video.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we will let you know when you can join us. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, good evening. Mr. Chair, members of the Design Review Board. The first item this evening is case number PDR 1924038. The proposal is to add 54 square feet to the first floor and a new 1,066 square foot second floor to an existing 2,241 square foot single family residence. Because the extent of the demolition to the existing house exceeds 50%, the project is considered a new single family residence. The project also includes construction of retaining walls in the southern and western portions of the property to rectify an open code enforcement case. Additionally, a new swimming pool and barbecue pavilion are proposed in the eastern portion of the site. The residence is located on the east side of Glenmont Drive and located on a 19,180 square foot lot. And here's the lot right here, if you can see my mouse. Staff is supportive of the site planning of the project. The site plan does not change significantly. The footprint of the house and garage is very similar to the existing conditions. The landscaping is drought tolerant and complementary to the contemporary design. Code compliant split-faced block retaining walls will replace the non-conforming and unpermitted retaining walls. The retaining walls that we're speaking of are right here. These are the landscape plans. The retaining walls are here and in this area. Here's the first floor plan. The street is actually over here, and the driveway comes up this way. The front door is here, and then the southern neighbor is down here. This is the second floor plan. Again, the street is over here. The garage is here. This is the master bathroom above the garage. The neighbor is south along here. There are 2 bedrooms up here and then a roof deck. Real quickly, the roof plan. With regard to mass and scale, as noted in the neighborhood survey, nearby homes are all one proposed 2 cents with the largest in the neighborhood. Part of the second floor is proposed in a prominent location in the southwestern portion of the site adjacent to Glenmont Drive, and is further emphasized due to the upslope topography of the site. In accordance with the hillside design guidelines to follow the topography of the site and to minimize the story of the proposed residence back from the first floor on the south and west elevations. So this is the west elevation. This is the elevation facing Glenmont. What we're recommending is to step back this area of the house because it's in line with the first floor. Similarly, this is the south elevation. And what we're recommending is this mass here be stepped back because this area here, the first and second floor, are in line. Staff is also suggesting that the board should consider eliminating or reducing the 2-story volume above the entry to reduce the appearance of mass. This area here is actually not floor area. It is a 2-story volume. And what we were suggesting is to eliminate this or reduce it to reduce the appearance of mass. The mass and scale of the residence is appropriate with the added condition and the facts that the second floor master bedroom steps back from the first floor garage facade, and the proposed flat roof of the residence reinforces the contemporary style of the residence. So I referenced, I referenced the stepping back of the master bathroom from the garage elevation right here. The side of the second floor facade of the building steps back from this area here. This is the north elevation of the house. The street is right here, and then there's the mountain in front. And finally, this is the east elevation. Related to design and detailing, I should say this is the rendering of the design. Real quickly, the barbecue pavilion information. Related to the design and detailing, the residence is contemporary in style and will be faced with smooth trowel plaster, composite wood siding, and smooth stone tiles. Staff is recommending that additional siding be incorporated into the facades to provide better distribution of materials. Additionally, while it appears that different materials terminate appropriately at the inside corners of the house, the east side stair tower faced with siding abuts against tiles. And let me go back and show you the area I'm talking about. That's in this area here. Staff is recommending a condition to revise elevations of the residence to ensure materials terminate correctly. These are the materials proposed, railing and window details. Related to privacy, the proposed residence includes a roof deck in the eastern portion of the site. That's in this area here. Given the 30-foot distance between the deck and the common property line and the topography of the area, privacy concerns, in staff's opinion, should not be created. However, additional trees should be planted in this area to mitigate privacy issues and soften the overall appearance of the house. So again, these are the landscape plans. The roof deck is right in this area approximately. And what we're suggesting is planting more landscaping, planting more trees in this area. The design and detailing of the house is contemporary style of the residence is reinforced. Materials such as smooth trowel plaster, stone tile, composite siding, glass railings, and fiberglass doors and windows. The barbecue pavilion is designed in the same style as the residence, and the roof deck should not pose privacy concerns. I'm going to follow up with a couple photos. The upper photo here shows sort of the cul-de-sac the photo is taken from the cul-de-sac terminus of Glenmont. And this is, you can see a little bit of the house back here. The lower picture is at a higher elevation on site, and this shows the length of the house and the garage. Approval of the project with the following conditions. The first condition, the second floor, the south elevation and the west elevation portions of the house shall be stepped in from the first floor of the residence. The second condition, additional composite wood siding shall be incorporated into the facade of the residence, the design of which shall be reviewed and approved by staff. The third condition, materials used on the building face shall terminate at inside corners. I should say building facade shall terminate at inside corners. And then landscape plan shall be amended between the residence and the southern property line to include additional trees. We also had a couple considerations. The first consideration was consider eliminating or reducing the two-story volume above the entry to the residence. The second consideration was consider using permeable paving where possible. Staff received a number of letters of concern, mostly related to this two-story nature of the design and size of the house. These emails were forwarded to you. And then finally, as Ms. Smith mentioned, as you know, the project was continued from your December meeting. In the intervening month, the applicant revised plans for the house in his attempt to address the additional second floor step back condition that the staff is recommending. You were forwarded these plans yesterday. I can go over these plans at your request. They're further on the PowerPoint. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation.
Do any board members have questions? Mr. Simonian, yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Kiesel, the links of the drawings that were provided didn't include some of those renderings and color elevations that you had shared with us a moment ago. And I'm wondering if you could actually share the renderings at the moment, just so we could have that in the background as we're discussing it, or if that's something you could email us, I could pull it up on my end as well. But some of those color elevations and renderings would be very helpful to have in the background for this discussion. That's one. And two is...
Does that work?
Well, at the moment, all we're seeing are the photos.
Yeah, Roger, I think your internet connection is a little slow there. You keep dropping in and out.
Okay. I have the west elevation up.
Okay, we see that now.
Okay.
Yeah, Roger, do you have the elevations and renderings via email or a link you could email us while the architect's presenting? Is that something you could do?
Not sure. I can certainly try.
And can you put on while you're trying, can you have the overall rendering from the south kind of west corner?
That bird's eye view kind of look. Yeah, that one right there.
I don't think I can do both at the same time.
Well, I'm okay if you could break away for a moment to send those, because I think those would be handy as the architect is presenting, especially as we're talking about some of the elements you're referring to.
Okay, I'm sorry. You cut out in the first part of what you said. Can you repeat that?
If possible, it would be great if you could email it to us.
Okay.
And last, great. And last, it would be helpful for me at least, and I'm not sure if the architect should be doing this or staff, kind of go over the changes and if I should be looking at the latest drawing package versus the original one.
Okay, you cut out there. I can go over what I have for the changes.
Great.
Whoops. Went a little too far. Okay. So this is the revised first floor plan. There really isn't any revision to it aside from this dashed line here shows where the second floor will cantilever over the first floor. This is the second floor plan. And the master bedroom is set in 10 feet from where it was before. And this area here is set in 7 feet. So this is the edge of the first floor here. And so this has changed. Additionally, if you recall, and I've got a comparison, this area here was open, was the open volume. It is now taken up by additional square footage. And then this area here is the cantilever part. This is the comparison. So this is the old, well, this is the original. And then this is what the applicant is proposing to do to address the step back conditions. So again, you can see right here and right here, and this area here are the changes. I just put in the revised roof plan. This is the cantilever part right here. This is where the facade is stepped back. The revised west elevation, again, this is the setback is visible right here, the step back, I should say. This is the comparison. You see the step back here versus not over here. South elevation, again, you can't necessarily, see the step back, but it's in this area here. Revised north elevation, this will show the cantilever. The east elevation, this area here shows the second floor step back. This is the revised rendering. So you can see the additional step back here and here. And here, the original drawing rendering. This here is the rendering with the step backs to reflect staff's condition.
Roger?
Yes.
Hi, it's Board Member Smith. I have a question. Can you let us know thanks. Can you let us know by how many feet it steps back at the part of the house that faces the street on that curved wall? And
right.
in what's in what's above the living room, because it's really not very apparent. We sort of get things poking back out.
Right, it's this area here, and it's between 7 and 10 feet here and here.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Simonian.
Mr. Kiesel, Glass railing on the new stepped back version, the lower rendering, the glass railing above the master bedroom curved wall. Is that a screen wall intended to screen the solar panels behind it, or is that an actual roof, secondary roof deck as well on that roof area?
I think it serves as just a parapet. There is no roof deck on top. I do know that the roof plans showed solar equipment. So I think it more functions as a parapet.
The portion that's stepped back on the south side, next to the bedroom in the middle, there's no deck there, correct? That is just kind of a, say, horizontal building, a canopy in a sense that cantilevers out 7 feet. Is that right? Or it sticks out 7 feet?
Yes, you're correct. And that was actually the one concern staff had about the revised elevation here. The elevation drawings appear to show a railing here, while the rendering does not. And we believe that the rendering elevation is more attractive versus having a railing in this area.
Can you put up the elevation, the color elevation that you're referring to?
Sure. It's right here. This line here to us delineates a railing, the continuation of a railing. And so in the rendering, the railing stops here and roughly in this area for the master bedroom, but there is no railing or patio here. And we think the rendering is more attractive.
It's going to be a function of whether bedroom number 2 is going to have a sliding door there, and if that's an accessible deck, or if it's just an architectural feature. But we could maybe talk to the architect about that.
Okay, shall we move on to the presentation from the applicant?
Yes. And Chair Welch, I would like to remind the public, or actually update the public, that if you would like to call in for this item, you're welcome to do so at area code 818-937-8100. Again, that number is 818-937-8100. And these would be for individuals who would like to speak on this item. Thank you.
Okay, can I start? Am I starting?
Yes, you may, and just please state your name for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Hamlet Zorabians. I'm the project architect. And for the record, my address is 3467 Ocean View Boulevard, Suite B in Montrose area, north of Glendale. Well, I want to first of all thank the staff for their thorough report. And we've been working on this project for last year and a half, and this project comes to you even before the COVID situation kicked in, and we've been slowed down as far as the progress of the project. Most of the explanations have already been done, but I'm gonna, for clarity, I just want to talk about the uniqueness of the project itself. The existing site is very unique in that it's the last property at the end of the cul-de-sac. And what we had to the north property, there's no other house looking into the property itself. And being as such, the backdrop of this building is just basically the mountain and the slope behind it. So we have a lot of limitations as to where actually this addition was supposed to happen. And so what we decided from the very beginning, site plan, was to keep the exact location of the existing building, if you will, and keep the majority of the exterior walls. And what we have to remove the entire roof to be able to actually retrofit the second floor into. So that was the reason that technically we went over 50%. Is because the part of the exterior walls of the existing building, the way it is, we had to replace the glazing, the window, exterior doors, because they were in a very dire situation and condition. So the location-wise, we are using the existing footprint, if you will, of the building itself, and virtually massing-wise, we are adding the second floor on top. Now, the second floor, the way we had designed before, we had designed it right on top of the exterior walls of the first floor or the ground floor level, which then after we received the comments from the planning department that as a condition of the approval, the conditioning is to happen for the second floor to actually step back. Then, in fact, we've done that. We've revised it. And so the amount of setting back the second floor is what we set back was 10 feet from the radius position in the corner where we have the curve. And also the entire the facade of the second floor is set back from the exterior wall on the west side looking to Glenmont. And also we've set back 7 foot from the edge of the existing building on the south side. So doing that, we were able to do this thing, eliminate the 2-story volume that was actually recommended us to be eliminating as far as the mass is concerned. So that 2-story volume is gone already within the change that we have made. So the building itself, the second floor, is only comprised of 2 bedrooms with bathrooms and a closet. And comparing the second floor area to the first floor existing, we're talking about less than 50% of the first floor that is going to be there. The reason why I chose to go with a contemporary design is to be able to do a flat roof rather than a sloped roof, which adds to the massing itself. We are allowed to go with the height that we are going with is a 32 maximum. We want to go 3 feet above whatever we have proposed here if we were to go to the sloped roof. So those are decisions that along the way that we have made forward. One of the also important aspects to understand is that we didn't change the driveway, we didn't change the location of it, and right now the way it is, the driveway is on the north side of it, and you enter the house from the back side. And that's the only way that you can actually enter this house and project. So we kept it the same. We haven't made any changes there. But there is an existing retaining wall that separates the driveway from the building itself, which is just about like 5 or 6 feet, depending on where location-wise there is. It's not in good shape itself. The reason is that it doesn't have any freeboard on top of that. So the superficial, rocks and superficial soil, if you will, from the slope was always coming down to the driveway. So the owner had to, during the rain time, he had to make some provisions to call people to come in and clean it up and all. So that was presenting an issue for him all the time, maintenance issue. So what happened was we, from the very beginning, we have consulted the geotechnical engineer to give us some recommendations how to, alleviate this situation and how we can really help the project and the site, the existing conditions. So that's why you saw that Mr. Minas he had to recuse himself because he was one of the engineers that I work most of the time, and he's very knowledgeable and experienced. So we called him to the job site, not knowing that he's going to be elected one of the members, obviously. So he came over and we had a very good discussion. A couple of times during the rain, we had meetings there. And we tried to help the project in the sense of whatever is causing any issues as far as superficial rain, superficial, debris that comes down, especially on the east side. We noticed that there is so much garbage there. There's so broken drainage system and so on and so forth there, which, we couldn't leave it the way it is. So he recommended very highly that we put some sort of a retaining wall on the east side. So we said to ourselves, if we were going to be doing the retaining wall there, it's much better to also secure the retaining wall with a structure there. So we decided to do our barbecue pavilion on that side, which is a 15-foot maximum pavilion there. We also incorporated a swimming pool there, right at the pavilion, which is tucked away from the front of the building all the way to the east side. In my opinion, as an architect, I think all these improvements that we have shown here is going to further, improve that area as far as mud movement, anything like that.
Okay. Robbins, your time is up here, so. Okay.
That's the reason that we've done this thing. But to answer your questions, I've also taken a snapshot from the middle of the Glenmont, and I sent that picture to Roger, and I didn't know if he will be able to show that to you, but it's just to show how the existing building right now looks from the Glenmont, street. And and that snapshot, if you go closer, if you can close up, Roger, we can just see that even the first floor, it's not that much visible because of the slope that the Glenmont Drive is, or Glenmont Street is, or Drive is. I'm sorry. So here we've taken that. So you can imagine if you put the second floor there, and you push the second floor 10 feet back from the edges of the building itself, it's going to be hardly visible. I think the second floor will be visible if you're going all the way to the cul-de-sac, making left turn, and then going up to the upper properties. Yes, I mean, from that upper properties, obviously, you'll be able to see the second floor. But it's not that, prominent that we are talking about when we're using it. So that was my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, I'm running out of time, but I'll be available to answer any questions. Yeah. Please give me the opportunity later on. If you have any questions, I'll be available to answer.
We may have questions for you right now, sir. So do any of the board members have questions? Ms. Smith.
Thanks. Sorry, I was using the wrong mouse. So I do have questions about this quarter radius that I see as a prominent feature of your design. Does it have curved windows or doors?
It has, it's not a curved windows or doors itself, but there were panels. It's like kind of panelized that, it's going to have two of the panels that are going to be acting as door, but the rest of it is a fixed panel. And the reason we've done this thing is because that's inherently, that's the way the first floor of the existing building is. And we're just mimicking that. You see the quarter round that we have done that? Existing building has that quarter round windows at the moment. Right now, the existing building has that. And so what we are doing, we are refurbishing the windows, if you will, and then we're going to the second floor. When we're adding 10 feet, we're going back, we're doing that, mimicking that, the same radius, quarter radius that you're referring to.
So you're using the existing windows on the first floor?
Yes. I mean, location of the existing windows. We're going to.
So you're not refurbishing them; you're replacing them.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Oh wait, Mr. Simonian does have a question.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Zorobians.
Good evening.
That area that stepped back on the south facade next to bedroom number 2. That we were discussing earlier. Is that sliding? Is that going to be an operable sliding door, and will there be access to that deck on the south side of bedroom number 2 on the second floor?
No, I think you were right when you were mentioning that's going to be as a canopy, because talking to the owner, the way the discussion we had, those are going to be just windows there. So we don't want necessarily from the secondary bedroom, someone will, access that canopy over there. So the perspective or rendering rather, that shows that interrupted, I think that's the way we prefer as well. So we're not going to have any sliding doors coming from the second bedroom, onto the deck. So we're not going to have a deck. That's going to function as a canopy, if you will, as you suspected.
And what is the roof material at the moment? What are you proposing as the roof material?
Well, we're proposing to have a single ply, modified bitumen roofing system, which we're going to have some gravel on it. This is something that is just very commonly used, where it's a very thick material, so you can actually walk over it for maintenance purposes. But that's going to be the roof material there. But as far as the deck is concerned, where we have, for instance, the deck and the terraces, we're going to be having some tiles. I mean, we're going to be tiling them, most probably thin set tile on them. So we can actually, either we can continue the tile to have the same material around it, just for the look of it, but at the same time, we won't have, any parapets there or any railing, because we won't access the middle portion of that canopy.
And the canopy itself, the color elevations, I think Mr. Kiesel's trying to email them. The material itself, as I'm looking at the drawings at the moment, is number 6. What is that? What does the material consist of the panel? It's a metal clad canopy, I see.
Yeah, it's a metal clad canopy. That's what we started with. And I think in one of the perspectives, because we were doing this thing very quickly, one of the perspectives shows plaster actually white. So we were open to, suggestions from the staff. If they prefer to keep it as such, we can keep it. Because what we were trying to do from the very beginning is to match the window frame color to the canopy fascia, if you will. So that would be more of a darker color rather than a very bright white color.
I was going to suggest is if that is, which is what I suspected, a canopy, and the canopy material itself is a metal cladding, you could certainly continue that and just give it a minute.
Oh.
Have all that tile kind of continuing from the terrace over to the radius deck, and it would lighten up both the facade and also the aerial kind of bird's eye view of the project. That's why I was asking those questions.
Okay, and that material you're referring to is for the middle portion, that long canopy that we're discussing, correct?
I believe so, yes. If that ends up being
no problem.
If that's a metal canopy and not plaster, that's a solution as to how that could be treated.
Hey, it's Jay. I wanted to pop in real quick there, just so I can keep track of all this. The area we're talking about as a canopy is actually going to be the fascia of the new roof if the board votes to push the second floor back. Am I correct? I'm not seeing a canopy much on the drawing.
Yes, I believe you're correct, Jay.
Okay. Thank you.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Just have one question for Mr. Zarabians. Did you work through multiple different scenarios for where you would place the massing of the second floor of the house?
Yeah, I mean, in the first go around, we had some sketches done as far as where you would put it, but because of the shape of the lot itself being very elongated, if you will, and in order for us to keep the existing structure, which we are counting on that, it's very important for us to come in from the center location so we don't end up having a lot of corridors and walkways, because it would actually more elongate the building itself, and you can see it longer building rather than what it is now. My intention was to put the second floor in that location. So when it comes to the east side of it, we're actually seeing that stepping down because we're using the deck there that you're seeing there. We're using the roof of the first floor, if you will. That's the roof of the first floor by being flattened. So we are using that. We're not adding any other deck in a sense of creating that deck. We're using that. It was very readily visible. I toured the entire area there, going to the east side, and saw this thing that it would be very nice to have it step down as far as the building is concerned. And the one thing that I just want to also mention that the second floor truly is not a very large second floor compared to the first floor because it's less than 50% of the area. We're talking about just 1,000 square feet for the second floor, which only is including 2 bedrooms with bathroom and closet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I guess we have a follow-up question from Board Member Smith.
Hi, I was in reviewing the plans and the notes. It mentions dark painted downspouts. Do you have integral downspouts, or are they on the exterior of this design?
The downspouts that we're going to have would be on towards the north side of it, where it's not visible from the front, because the decks they're going to have internal drainage, so you're not going to have it there. The reason that we are able to do this thing without downspout is because we don't have any slope roof that necessitates the downspouts there. But the downspouts I'm talking about is for the the main roof, which is flat, and the downspouts will be located on the driveway side rather than on the neighbor side.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any callers for this case?
Yes, Chair Welch, we have one caller.
On the driveway.
Ms. Erica Passman, you're online.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. You're on the air.
Oh, okay. I live at 1565, directly across the street from this proposed project, and I think that this project falls exactly under the design review guidelines and the hillside guidelines as well, and the fact that it's not really compatible with our property surrounding this house. I feel like I have submitted emails saying that I feel like the mass and scale of this house is out of proportion, and in fact that photograph that the architect just submitted is extremely misleading. It doesn't even show the story poles that are in existence there right now. And now if you drive from the bottom of Glenmont Drive towards the house, that's all you see is the top of this house. So I'm just concerned that this design is just too big as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I feel sorry for my neighbor that lives directly below this house. And also, when you're talking about doing a setback of 10 feet or 7 feet, that's not going to make a difference in how this elevation of this house is. You're basically talking about 100 feet from the base of the street on Glenmont Drive, looking above at the top of it. And that photograph he submitted doesn't even show that. Why would you even show that? It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, first of all, this project was submitted in December with no story poles at all. So, I'm like, yeah, set it back. I'm thinking set it back towards the back of the house. When you look at the Glendale design guidelines, they have a whole, which the city spent thousands of dollars on to incorporate what should be done with a second story and single family homes that are surrounding it, to soften the look of what a second story would be. This is not. This thing is like in your face. I can open my front door and it's right there in my face. So I'm not happy with the design of it. And for the architect to say the second story only needs to be at that location, that's ridiculous. It can be placed towards the back or reduce the height of it or something. But I feel like if this is approved, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this is going to happen. Like other people are going to start putting second stories in. It's just going to ruin our neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Are there any other callers? You're on mute. And Mr. Zarabi, can you mute your device there, please?
Yes, we have Ms. Catherine Gurka. Ms. Gurka, you're on the line, on air. Ms. Gurka, you're on the air with the Design Review Board. Ms. Gurka, it appears that she is on the line, yet there's no answer.
Lilia?
Yes.
You may want to ask if she is watching the computer as well. If she doesn't do that, that may help. She just is on the line and not watching the computer.
I'm hoping that she's listening to you, Roger.
Okay.
Whether it's on television or streaming on her computer, but it appears that she's not. We do have another caller, so perhaps we can put Ms. Gurka on hold once more and come back to her. So.
Okay.
Ms. Pam Schellers,
yes.
You are live with the Design Review Board. Ms. Schellers?
Yes.
And please speak up. Thank you.
Hi. Wait a minute. Let me turn down my TV. I live at 1592 Glenmont. So my house, the back end of my house is directly across from this project. One of the things I wanted to ask you is many of the neighbors, including myself, have sent in comments, and it doesn't appear to me that any of you are addressing these issues. You're just talking about the railings and details of the design, but our issue is that this house is not suitable to the neighborhood. It doesn't meet the standards of the hillside guidelines. It's substantially larger than any house in the neighborhood. There are no two-story houses at all anywhere in this neighborhood. The houses are all one story, sort of set back into the street, and it's kind of the street, if you've been on it, is sort of like a canyon. It's very quaint, and this house, as I said, will not even comes close to doing anything else. If you look at where the house sits now, it's way above the house next to it. So the first story now is above the roof line of the house next to it. If you add a second story to it, it's like there's a three-story house. And so, in essence, I would hope that you would read all of the comments from the neighbors, because we spent a great deal of time thinking about this and addressing the issues of our concern, and particularly because the hillside guidelines exist to keep neighborhoods intact, and it would not do that. This would just change this would have a McMansion in our little street.
Okay, thank you. We did receive 7 letters, so all of them have been received by the members and have been reviewed. So we will take those into consideration. So thank you. Are there any other callers?
Yes, Ms. Catherine Gurka called back. So Ms. Gurka, you're online.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I need to mute. Thank you. Sorry about that. Good evening, Chair Welch and members of the Design Review Board. I was watching the meeting tonight about a different case in which I was interested, which has been continued, and I stuck around for this discussion. It alerted me to several issues that I've had with the presentation of hillside projects in the past, and it really sort of exemplifies the difficulties with the city's review of such projects. First, this project is almost 50% larger than the neighborhood average. And then, as other speakers have pointed out, the existing properties are all one story. A two-story house is simply not compatible. There's no way to make a finding of compatibility. The staff report talks about the hillside design guidelines. However, Glendale has a hillside development review policy, 30.11.040. There is no mention of this in the staff report, even though it is directly relevant to this case. I have never seen a mention of hillside development review policy in any staff report regarding development, hillside development. That is an error that needs to be rectified. It's also my understanding that the hillside development review policy is not even a part of the materials that the DRB is given when they join the board. I'd like to read a little bit of this policy. Every discretionary decision made by City Council along with city boards, commissions, and administrators related to development in these zones shall take into account the following into consideration. Development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of size, scale, bulk, mass, roofline orientation, setbacks, and site layout. The architectural style and architectural elements of infill development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. This differentiates hillside review from design review in other parts of the city where size and architecture are not called out. Here, they are specifically segregated into categories, and you are asked to make findings in relation to them. It is very difficult to find that the size and the architecture of this project meets the standards of the neighborhood. I also note that the design, the materials that are available to the public do not include any photographs of the surrounding properties, which is highly unusual. Staff should never put forward a project without an analysis of its compliance with the hillside development review policy if the project is in the hillside. Therefore, I would say the staff report is fundamentally incomplete and flawed. There needs to be an analysis and a finding of compatibility in terms of size and architecture, and I just don't think that finding can be made. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Any other callers?
No, Chair Welch, there are no other callers.
Okay, so Mr. Zorobians will give you 2 minutes to rebut any of the points raised by any of the callers.
Chair Welch?
Yes, Mr. Simone.
Can staff put up the renderings or email it to us when they have a moment? Thank you, staff, for forwarding the elevations. We got that, so thank you very much for that. I've already downloaded them and it's on my screen, and the renderings, if you could forward those to as well, that'd be very helpful, that kind of comparison of before and after.
Do you want me to put that up on the screen to share?
If you can, yeah, Roger, that would be good.
Okay.
And then Mr. Zorobians, we're going to give you 2 minutes to rebut.
Respectfully, I asked if you can just give me a minute, instead of 2, please, because I need to answer this, because we're all for one reason here. We want to get to the best design and solution. Well, first of all, as far as privacy is concerned, I've reviewed also some of the comments from the neighbors, and let me tell you this: that one of the neighbors, which is adjacent to us on the south side, is the most important neighbor that can be actually impacted by the development itself. And we have they had a very good discussion with him over the phone. And right now they are meeting with each other, the property owner and the neighbor together, to resolve the issues as far as their concerns are concerned. Because their concerns, I heard their concerns, and it's something that we can address, all those concerns. And I just want to, as a side note, I just want to let you know about that. Privacy is one of the things that, most of the houses, homes that they are concerned with. But let me explain one thing, that these houses are either they're very high elevation with respect to this project, or they're so far from each other. With all due respect, the lady who called, address 1565 Glenmont, or 1546 Glenmont rather, the 1546 Glenmont, 400 feet away from the property. There is no swimming pool there. Future swimming pool, if it's added, it will be on the south side. Building will basically mask it. 1565, 250 feet away from the property. 1592, 250 feet away from our property, 100 feet plus is above our project. So if there's any privacy issue, first of all, it will be, we should have been concerned as far as privacy is concerned very quickly, because they're going to be looking into our property. Now, let alone the privacy. Let's go to as far as the design objectives of the Glendale Municipal Code. Compatibility, as you know, and very quickly say that it's a very vast subject. It's you got to define it, you got to test it, you got to do something about it. The way it's already dealt with in Glendale Municipal Code is by certain ratios and certain compatibility comparisons that there is there. One of the ways to determine compatibility is to survey existing houses in the immediate neighborhood and then take an average for the lot size, existing and proposed floor areas. There we are calculating the FAR, which is the floor area ratio. It's very simple. Average building heights and setbacks as well to come to understand the compatibility. These are things that we can actually refer to. Compatibility, we cannot just subjectively say it's not compatible. Everyone might have his own opinions there. This is what Glendale Municipal Code has formulated to determine compatibility. In our DRB package, as required, we have included this neighborhood survey list according to this survey. This is what I'm going to tell you. There are existing homes. I don't know what's going on with something.
Mrs. Robbins, you're out of time, actually. That's the alarm going off.
Oh, there's the alarm. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to quote one thing, if I may, please, from guidelines, Hillside guidelines. I have a lot of notes here to talk about, but one thing that I just want to quote from Glendale Hillside guidelines that we are complying with is section B, verse 3. It says, new projects may be larger than existing development, provided the mass and the scale of the new project is appropriate and transitioned well to the existing context. And then he goes and continues
okay.
explaining, this may require a second floor to be set back from the front and side of the floor.
Yep. Okay, Mrs. Robbins, we're going to have to call it there. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All righty. Okay, so we can close the public hearing unless any last minute callers. No. Okay. So we'll close the public hearing, and I would be looking for some board member comments to get us started. So who would like to go first?
And Chair Welch, would you like to have the perspective drawings remain on the screen? Or?
Yes, please. I think that would be nice. Yes.
We would not be able to see who is speaking though on the screen. However,
I see. Okay. I guess we can let them go then. Board members, are we okay with letting the renderings be dispatched?
Yes, I've already taken a screenshot of it. So from my point of view, I have what I need on my phone here.
Okay. Oh, that's a good idea. Let me do that too.
And we can also bring it back.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go back there where we go. So who was first? I think I saw Art's hand up first. Mr. Simone?
Thank you, Chairman Welch. Thank you, staff, and thank you, Mr. Zarabians, for the presentation. It was very helpful. And,
Mr. Zarabians, can you please mute your phone, please? Thank you.
Much better. And I'm wondering, there's an echo, but that went away, so hopefully it won't come back. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to discuss this project. I very much appreciate the fact that we have a revised set of drawings to consider that takes staff's main conditions into design form. That's very important because usually on these kind of matters, staff makes conditions or makes recommendations for conditions, and we simply do not have visuals, and we have to then prescribe. In this case, the architect has taken the time and the efforts to revise renderings, to revise elevations, to revise drawings, to help us better visualize a solution. And so that is, I think, a worthy effort, and it certainly helped me understand the project better, especially when we're working remotely here. In regards to the site and context, we have a hillside street, we have a steep street, we have a situation where the homes are terraced as you're going down the hill. And we've had these kind of cases in the past, and we've had second story additions on these sort of properties in the past. And we've had properties come in front of us that had CC&Rs that disallowed second story, but over time, those CC&Rs were deemed inappropriate or incompatible, or didn't have the necessary jurisdiction to govern. But in either case, successful projects have been put forth that provided second story solutions to these kind of terraced hillside streets. So this is not unique from this board's point of view. In regards to this property, I think that issue is minimized because it's the last home on the block. And as the architect pointed out, the home to the south of it is going to get impacted, and usually the home above it gets impacted, but in this case, the home above it is several hundred feet up. And so it's unique in that sense, in that impact is minimized. Overall, the proposed home is not overly large. It's a modern setting, and it's set back appropriately, but more importantly, it's set back in the site, and it also sits back on the second floor. So I think that's a good solution. When I compare the old with the latest drawings, I believe the latest drawings are much more successful. The stepping back of the second floor reduces the mass and bulk of the project. The way the drawings have paid attention to the garden walls, the grading design, the retaining walls, etc., lends me to believe that the architect has spent considerable time studying the topography of the site, because those are usually information that we ask for, but in this case, it's here in front of us and it works. The only way to access the site is from the rear because of the existing driveway. And so the house has to be accessed from the rear. And the yard, etc., has to be facing south. And so you're somewhat cocooned or, I guess, forced into a certain layout. And that layout is as depicted in front of us. The second story is 50% of the first floor. It's been pushed back towards the north as much as possible. And overall, I think it's a very good solution of a modern second story home for the area. I like the use of the modern materials. I like the overall design language, and I support the project with the revised set of drawings as depicted. And I think some of staff's comments in regards to additional conditions that regarding the landscaping and paving are all good. I do think that that middle portion on the second floor that has the flat canopy, if we are going with a metal material, which I think the metal canopy will actually work better, if it wraps around and turns into some sort of a metal roof with a low slung slope, I think is a good solution because it'll actually break up the tile or the deck material when you're looking at it from a bird's eye view. I also think if a tile is going to be, a thin set tile is going to be placed over the deck, it should probably, I would suggest some sort of a tile that has a wood texture to it, because if we go with an earth-toned wood textured tile, it'll really minimize kind of the fifth elevation of this house when you're looking at it from above. Wood, of course, would be the best, or some sort of a, cementitious product. However, those have maintenance issues. So if we're going with a tile, I think if we go with some sort of a wood texture to it, and it could be very modern, but very earth tone, would actually minimize the texture, the fifth elevation massing. Also, as the architect pointed out, we're going to have a flat roof. I suggest a heavy use of gravel on the flat roof above. And I would go with like an earth toned kind of a gravel color to really minimize that fifth elevation. And so the graveled roof, the wood textured tiles on the decks, the second floor being stepped back, and the lush landscaping, I think would all kind of contribute to minimizing the mass and bulk of this home. And those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Board Member Simonian. Board Member Smith. You're still muted.
Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, I was struggling between two computers. Thanks very much. I apologize. So thanks for calling on me, Chair Welsh. Congratulations. I have a lot of pages of comments on this project, believe it or not. As staff reminded us at the beginning of this process, we're not supposed to redesign this according to our taste. This is not, it's a good design, it's a bad design. What we're tasked with is figuring out, as you all know, whether or not a proposed project conforms to the city's applicable guidelines. I am really disturbed that the staff reports we receive, unfortunately, just sort of talk about designs, push this way, pull that way, reduce impact. What would be really helpful, it would be as if our staff reports applied the design guidelines that we're applying as well. I have looked up the Hillside Development Review Policy in light of what the speaker said. And it was a little disappointing. Development should be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, and I had found this in other things, in terms of size, scale, bulk, and mass, roofline orientation, setbacks, and site layout. So by having the second floor, which is a paltry 1,000 square feet, many people have raised families in a lot fewer square feet, by setting the second floor back by 7 to 10 feet, it's just set back by 7 to 10 feet. The apparent mass is really not reduced in my view. By having a high parapet on top of it, including a glass railing, just sort of makes the whole thing taller. It's sort of like putting a very, very tall pompadour on a very short person. It makes them seem a lot taller than they are. Also, under the hillside,
Smith?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Your camera appears to have slipped.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, thanks so much. Under the Hillside Development Policy item, oh, you can see my hideous notes. It says under A1D, the architectural style and architectural elements of infill development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And that's architectural style and elements. It's not square feet. It's not the size of the lot. It's not the FAR. It should be pretty apparent to all of us what architectural style and elements are, particularly with our professions. I don't feel like this design as proposed or as proposed yesterday really is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of its size, its height, or its design. The two-story compatibility is a real problem. The fact that there aren't other two-story residences there makes it not compatible, period. If it could be pushed back so that it wasn't visible, it might be. But in that the owners want to use the existing foundations and so forth, that apparently makes it impossible. It should not be visible from the end of the driveway, period, from the public right-of-way. I was surprised by the materials because when I reviewed the hillside design guidelines under D, finished materials, it says clearly natural materials should be used whenever possible. So I wasn't even familiar with hardy board until hearing a few apartment projects coming up. I don't understand why fake wood is really a substitute for actual wood, and actual wood can be painted. I think fake wood, that hardy board, doesn't blend with the hillsides and would stand out. It's kind of a yellowish color. Under finished materials for number 4, it says use high quality materials, especially where facing the street. So just because people don't want to have any maintenance of a property doesn't mean that a house in an upscale neighborhood of one-story houses should use false wood. And materials should be used that reduce the transfer of heat into or out of the building. I brought this up recently before, and I see tons of black or anodized metal in this case, including the tile that we were talking about, the canopies, the window frames. I'm not crazy about, but they're not a large amount of material. Let me continue. I know you're thrilled to hear all this. The metal clad canopy was that almost black color, was how it was described, which isn't really a natural color in the Glendale Hills, to tell you, to let you know. The mass and bulk, as was discussed, I do not believe is reduced by stepping back the 1,000 square foot second floor by 7 to 10 square feet. And the idea that planting some trees would mitigate that doesn't really make sense, because there's no agreement in perpetuity. There's nothing about what size the trees would be or what they would be, and how future owners, or even this owner, if they felt like it, if the trees died or if they felt like cutting them down. If you can see this property from a neighbor's house and all the other houses are one story, it doesn't fit in. I will continue on my fun notes. The scale and proportion, this is under D for the design guidelines in hillsides. The scale and proportion is not really reduced by the design. The apparent mass and scale seem like a very large, almost commercial building from the side that would be visible from the street and the side that would be visible from the neighbor's yard. I don't see really a horizontal emphasis in the presentation in a meaningful way. It seems very vertical in most of the detailing. I noticed that this is number 4 under D, scale and proportion, differentiating the building with a hierarchy of architectural elements can assist in achieving a balance of proportional relationship and to the surrounding context. This does not exhibit any of that I have seen, and I really looked for that. Number 7 says surface detailing should not serve as a substitute for a well-integrated and distinctive massing. So in this building, there aren't bays. There are just sort of slabs, big sides, sort of like a gymnasium. I believe that bays would soften this, and I believe that the second story is too prominent. The fact that the second story bay is nearly the full width and nearly the full length isn't really softened by stepping it back just a little bit. The proposed box lights don't wash the walls. They really just sort of light themselves. But I was appreciative of the fact that we really received at least some light fixtures rather than a lighting plan. And they call attention to themselves rather than washing walls, which is what is really recommended. It would, as I said at the beginning, I think it would be really helpful if staff would analyze these designs for compatibility with the applicable design guidelines rather than what we receive. And I will work toward that with my neighbors and friends. I think this has steel troweled stucco. I don't really think that that it looks very natural. Sort of grayish stucco. I haven't seen that in nature personally. I did review the opposition letters, and I noted that one said it was out of scale and noted that there were no other second stories in the neighborhood. Another objected to the size, said it would tower over the other properties. Two said it was out of character, too tall, and a visual impact. Oh, and I wanted to bring up, I work in the field of environmental clearance. So if a visual effect is farther away, it doesn't normally reduce it that much. That's other things. So being 100 or 200 feet away from something that doesn't fit in doesn't make it fit in. Another letter mentioned the deck that doesn't comply with the HOAs and asking for additional time for review and the privacy issue. So I don't really feel like these problems were addressed, and I will tell you right now, I'm going to recommend that this be returned for redesign. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Board Member Smith. For my part, I do take into account that it's a neighborhood of just single-story homes. And I think because of that uniformity, it does create a higher standard in terms of addressing compatibility. I personally like the design. I think the second design is more successful than the first. I don't necessarily agree that it had to be done with the way it was presented in terms of the massing. If I look at this property from the south, if I face the south elevation or an east-west section, the property slants from the road upwards to the right. And to me, if you're going to conform to the topography, which is required to be in compliant with the codes, that would infer that the massing should be towards the east side, not to the west. And when I visited the property and viewed the story poles, I was, I'll be honest, a little taken aback. They were quite prominent when viewed from the street. So I do believe that this is not in compliance right now, even the revised design with the setbacks, which I do appreciate the effort of Mr. Zarabians to do that. I just think that it needs to be further pushed. I think that the deck, this roof deck, roof terrace that you're proposing on the east side, you should think about putting that on the west side and putting the massing of the building on the second floor to the east side. I'm not opposed to doing second stories, even in one-story neighborhoods. I just think that when we do that, when we approve that, they must be done carefully with as much deference to the orientation of the street, to the neighbors as possible. So that would be my recommendation. we also do return for redesign with a recommendation to further push the massing as far to the east as possible. The terraced section can be moved to the west, and I don't think you lose much in that trade-off. I think the design can still be successfully done. And I would further also recommend that the parapet height be reduced. It's at 3.5 feet. It seems a little excessive as a parapet. I don't think it needs to be that tall. I understand that that is technically the legally allowed height that you could go, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that. So I think that you could still successfully comport a design, keeping it with the same theme that you've got going, without necessarily having to go to full 3.5 foot parapet. So those are my thoughts. I'm sorry, Mr. Zora, we've already closed the public hearing, so I can't allow any further comments unless I have board members who want to address anything to the applicant. No, okay. Yes, Board Member Smith.
I'd like to make a motion to return this project for redesign based on our numerous and probably jumble confusion of comments.
May I recommend that we discuss those comments before we enter a motion?
Yes, by all means.
It's normally what we do. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that though Mr. Simonian is in the minority on this vote, it appears, I suppose I should read back his comments as well, and they may form the total grouping that we're going to bring forward with the applicant. So, if you may, my notes, like Francesca's, are quite jumbled, and I got a little cramp for a while, but I did my best. So give me a second. So going back to Mr. Simonian, there is a focus on the, well, this may change depending on how the east portion is moved, but the concept of any wrapping of materials from the fascia of the first floor to any setback roofed areas on the second floor, in terms of having those materials match, is something we could work with Mr. Zarabians on. If there are deck tiles, which I suppose there will be in the new design, Mr. Simonian recommended a wood texture. And for the roofs, he recommended a heavy use of earth-toned gravel for the upper surface. Ms. Smith had many concerns. I won't address concerns about the staff's use of the hillside design guidelines in its review of projects. I would like to assure the public as well as the board that staff does review all of the projects we look at in terms of the citywide design guidelines, which include the hillside design guidelines, and that the staff report itself is based on those guidelines. So as you work your way down the staff report, you'll see there are parallels from each section and each line item to the design guidelines. So hopefully that will help you understand our process a little better. Mrs. Smith, yeah, I'm sorry, it's very jumbled in this part. There was concern about the use of hardy board as a non-natural material. That's been used on scores of hillside homes approved by the board, so I don't know if there will be any consensus on that issue from the other board members, but let me know if there is, please.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
On that note, I think it'd be wise for us to just mention that in these hillside areas, especially in the fire zones, you cannot use regular wood, natural wood siding. You have to use a cementitious product because the fire department will not allow it. And so I thought before we kind of make any kind of a overarching decision about cementitious siding, it's the only thing that the fire department will allow as form of a site.
Yeah. Hi. This is Board Member Smith. So then I would suppose, in order to comply with the design guidelines, maybe then cementitious wood siding is not a natural material and shouldn't be used. That's just my interpretation of it.
In my personal and professional opinion, the view toward a building that has cementitious siding that is in a horizontal overlapped, clapboard type style is indistinguishable from wood siding that is painted.
Well, I disagree in my both personal and professional opinion.
We don't need to do this, but we do routinely approve it, and I don't think we will, unless there's concurrence from your colleagues, we won't include that in the conditions. Board Member Smith also concurred with Commissioner Welch that the parapet is too high on the project. It does look suspiciously like a deck railing, so we could work with the applicant to make sure that's not the case and that it's lowered to keep the height of the building down. There was concern about the use of metal materials and the color black. I didn't hear any concurrence from your colleague on the board.
Mr. Platt, thank you so much. Materials should not be utilized that reduce the transfer of heat into or out of the building. So it's the natural colors are supposed to be used. I don't really think black is normally a natural color in the hillsides. Thanks for your opinion.
No, that wasn't my opinion. I hadn't heard any concurrence from your colleagues, and that's my job right now, is to find where there's points of concurrence, and where there is, we put those into the conditions that we move forward with.
Yeah, I personally do not have any issues with dark anodized aluminum windows frames. It is a modern window that's used throughout modern design, and it actually is quite pleasant when it's coupled with other earth toned.
Oh, you must have misunderstood me. I'm so sorry. I explained that I had no problem with the dark with the dark window frames. It was the expanses of black and charcoal walls.
Oh, I apologize. Okay.
That's okay. Thanks.
Continuing, we heard that there was a concern that there were no bays in the design and the bays would soften the design. I'm not sure if we have concurrence on that. Obviously, the second story being too prominent, we have concurrence on that. A concern about the box lights on the walls calling attention to themselves. I didn't hear anyone else comment on that. Moving on to, and steel troweled stucco not being a natural finish. I'm not sure, Board Member Smith, if you were talking, that's where you were talking about the gray color, I believe, or is it the steel troweled stucco itself?
Thanks. It's just the color.
Okay, good. So, and then moving on to Board Member Welch, or Chair Welch now. The major condition he recommends is that the mass should be moved to the east and the deck to the west. And I'm not sure if I heard concurrence on that, so we should get some direction, hopefully.
Board Member Smith, did you have a comment on whether you concur with that or not?
Thanks, I absolutely agree. And since you went last, I had no opportunity to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So does that mean you're okay with the second floor if it's moved to the other side of the house?
Oh, thank you for asking. Sorry if that was unclear. It needs to be moved both back and to that other side.
Very well. And then we already talked about reduction of the parapet height. So that's everything that I've got. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Smith, this is where you would then make that motion if you were going to make it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that this project be returned to staff for redesign based on our many comments, conditions, and ideas.
Specifically those that were just read back to you?
Sure.
Good. And then one thing I just forgot, there were a couple of staff, there was one staff consideration about permeable pavers. Should we move forward with that? That would be at the driveway and possibly.
I was fine with those, yes.
Okay, good. So we'll keep the staff conditions, modify any of the ones that have been modified by these new conditions, and move forward with that.
Okay, so we have a motion, but I don't hear a second from Mr. Simonian, so I forget what is the process here. I have to pass the gavel if I'm going to second it.
Yes.
Okay, so I will pass the gavel to Ms. Smith for the moment, and I will second the motion.
Then if I'm the chair, then am I taking?
Actually, we would be more than happy to do roll call for you. So
I don't know what happened to this channel.
No, and that's fine. Roger, would you like to do roll call or would you like me to do so? Roger, you're on mute. So why don't I go ahead and so I have a motion to return for redesign by Ms. Smith, and I have a second by our chair, well, in this case, Board Member Welch, since he passed the gavel. I will do a roll call. Board Member Simonian. Board Member Simonian. Yes. How do you choose to vote on a return for redesign?
I'm sorry, I had you on mute. I apologize. No.
That's a no for Board Member Simonian. Mr. Minos, Board Member Minos, how do you wish to vote on a return for redesign?
Board Member Minos had to recuse himself on this one.
Oh, that's right. Forgive me. I apologize. Okay, so so it leaves Board Member Smith.
Aye.
And Board Member Welch.
Yes.
The motion to return for redesign passes 2-1. Thank you.
Okay, reclaiming the gavel here. I guess we can move on to the next item. Bill, you're on mute.
Thank you. The next case on tonight's agenda is a case that was also continued from the December 10th Design Review Board meeting. The case being PDR 2004418. The project is located at 519 Solway Drive, and Mr. Kiesel will be giving the staff presentation.
Mr. Kiesel, before you start, can we confirm that Board Member Minos has rejoined us?
Oh.
One moment, please. We will. Oh, yes, he has joined us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very good. Go ahead, Mr. Kiesel.
Shall I continue?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thanks. All right, a good evening again, Mr. Chair and members of the Design Review Board. The next item before you this evening is case number PDR 2004418. It's a review of a proposal to construct a new two-story, 3,123 square foot house and a detached 440 square foot two-car garage. The residence is located
Roger?
on the west. Yes. Oh,
Would you
sorry.
make the screen? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. The residence is located on the west side of Solway Street at 519 Solway, and the lot size is 7,800 square feet. While staff is generally supportive of the site planning, we do have several concerns. I'll show the site planning. The site plan is on the screen right now. I've put it to the side so it could get bigger, but Solway is right here. The orientation of the lot is how it is. Unfortunately, it's to our side. So the location of the garage. So I'll just point out the property line here. Here's the proposed house and the garage proposed. The location of the garage needs to be moved closer to the street. So in this direction toward the house, to minimize the existing oak tree, or to minimize the impact of the existing oak tree located behind it, while still maintaining the 25-foot clear radius for ingress and egress purposes. So just sliding the garage slightly forward so that this dash line still clears the house is what we're looking for. The driveway leading to the garage shall be reduced to 9 feet in width. The driveway here is what I'm talking about. And the majority of the driveway is at least, I think, 10.5 feet wide. What staff is suggesting is to reduce the width of the driveway area here to 9 feet and then accommodate additional landscaping adjacent to the house and or adjacent to the property line, which would provide some buffering. Finally, the plans for the proposed garage should be amended to provide a pitched roof to match the roof of the proposed residence. So this is a real quick floor plan and elevations of the garage. As proposed, it has a flat roof with actually it's a roof deck. And what is staff is recommending that roof be pitched to match the pitch of the house. Related to landscaping, the maximum the front walks should be reduced in width. So the main walk here, no more than 5 feet wide. This walk, no more than 4 feet wide. And then both walkways should feature decorative paving. Back to the driveway paving, or the driveway paving again. Staff is recommending that the paving pattern needs to be amended such that the pattern is integrated into the entire length of the driveway. So let me, I think it's the site plan that shows that. Let me step back. Yeah, the paving, delineation of paving here. What staff is suggesting is extending the pattern, but maybe just having lines in the center, like the abrupt stopping of the paving pattern is what we're a little bit concerned about. I'm going to move forward again to the landscape plans. Also, we're suggesting planting needs to be included at the base and top of the retaining walls to help screen this feature. So, so in this area here, some landscaping on, there is landscaping on the back side, but the front side. With regard to walls and fences, the stepped walls at the front entry should be eliminated with natural grading used in their place. and on-site walls shall be composed of split-face block as opposed to the stone material, which to us appears heavy. It's hard. I'm going to move forward to the renderings because it's hard to see. The stepped walls that we're talking about are in this area, and they're on each side of the two walks that go up to the front door. What we're suggesting is to eliminate those stepped walls and just provide natural grading adjacent to the walks and the steps. And then also the walls of the property should be faced in just a split face block as opposed to the material shown. I'm going to move back again. The proposed residence will be the largest on the street. Modifications to the design of the residence are warranted to reduce the max. The staff report provides some suggestions, including modifying the design to be split level, reducing the size of the residence with a corresponding reduction in mass, or providing additional second story step backs. So this is the front elevation or the street elevation. One of the things that we had looked at was a split level design. If you notice in this area of the house, this mass can be pushed down a little bit and a split level created, which would bring a corresponding reduction to the second story mass. So that was our idea of that. Let me pull forward to the floor plan. So this is the front of the house, and this is the area that we had thought about potentially doing a split level and lowering it a little to, in effect, lessen the appearance of mass. Reducing the size of the residence with a corresponding reduction in the mass. So that's just, shrinking the house with hopefully a shrinking of the mass, or providing additional step backs on the second floor. So that's pushing these second floors in a little bit more. In addition to the overall mass of the residence, certain windows proposed, particularly on the front facade, are out of proportion and need to be adjusted in size. And what we're looking at, again, this is the front elevation. These windows here, we think there can be a better proportionality. Moving on, again, this is the floor plan. So the front door, the area of the house that we're thinking maybe, split level. And then the second story is here. Related to design and detailing, the homes along Solway are really modest and simply detailed, and the proposed residence needs to more reflect that aesthetic. Let me go, I can show that as well. Columns as opposed to reading as walls. So that's, we're talking about these areas here. Windows shall be recessed with exterior grids and wood sills and stone wainscoting, which needs to have a matching capstone. Here, a couple of materials. As previously mentioned, the roof of the detached garage. Sorry, I'm stepping in front of myself. More details on the lighting and the windows. Okay, so as previously mentioned, the roof of the detached garage needs to be amended to have a pitch, not just not only to match the house, but to also alleviate privacy concerns. So if you recall in the site plan, and I can go back if you'd like, this is sort of the street-facing elevation, and it's right on the property line. And so the proposed roof deck really could pose a privacy issue for the neighbors adjacent. Similarly, the proposed balcony at the rear of the residence, and I've highlighted it here. This is the second floor, the master bedroom. This is the proposed balcony. What staff is suggesting is a slight reduction in size and a reorientation such that the view is directed toward the rear yard of the subject property. So maybe I'll quickly go back to the site plan. So the uphill slope is here. This is the neighbor I'm referring to here with the garage roof deck, and the balcony is in this area here. And what staff is suggesting is a slight reduction in size, and also just reoriented it so that it is oriented in this area. I'm going to go back now and just wrap up with a couple of photos of the existing site here and here. Staff has 14 conditions of approval. I can go over them if you'd like. Otherwise, I am done with my presentation.
Okay, do any board members have questions for Mr. Keesley? Mr. Simonian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the rear retaining wall that's being proposed, where staff is asking for landscaping to be placed above it, what's the height? How high is that retaining? Excuse me. I apologize. How high is that retaining wall? I know it's there's a figure on it as far as the top of the wall, but I can't tell what the spot elevation is at the bottom.
Yeah, I think it's up to the maximum 15 feet behind the house.
So that's a 15-foot wall already at the rear?
Part of it will be, yes. I believe it goes, it gets lower as you go toward the hillside.
Could I just indicate that I think there was a misunderstanding. I think 15-foot wall retaining wall could also use the landscaping, but it was specifically on the left side of the house where there's a retaining wall there that's visible from the street. And this house was really lacking in landscape area. So it was in that area where it was intended to have some kind of planting at the base and above the retaining wall.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Menes.
Well, basically, about splitting the ground floor, again, many people having toddlers, young children, like to have flat floors for at least at a ground level. To be a child-safe situation. So I don't know how beneficial that splitting the ground floor is going to make to the mass of the building, if there is any other way to, say, to soften the front or the appearance of it in front, I think it would be more desirable to split the ground floor into having like steps within the ground floor.
Yep. So, board member minus, we haven't got to deliberations yet, and this is really just for if we have specific questions we want to ask staff that we don't have clarity on. Anyone else have questions? Okay. All right. Thank you. So, is the applicant ready to present?
Hello? Do you have my voice?
Yes. Okay. Go ahead. We hear you. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, I'm Arun Bogosian from K&M Design. First of all, I want to thank the staff for reviewing the project and for the process that we have gone through in the past year. And thanks, Mr. Kiesel, for his presentation. Well, I guess his explanation was pretty complete, so I'm just going to go and give some answers in terms of the comments that you guys have made, I guess. First, about the driveway that we talked about, it could be going down to 9 feet, and we could add some landscaping adjacent to the house. So that way, again, we sort of reduce the mass of the house in terms of like aesthetically, and when you look at the house, so you feel like it's lower. And when the access to the house with those stepping walls that we have, if that we keep it smooth and we keep the natural grade sort of. So again, if you look at that perspective, you feel like the house is massive and pretty tall. So if we take out those stepping walls and keep the natural grade, I guess when you look at the house, you feel like it's much lower. Because initially, if you, Roger knows about the design, so the house was pretty massive in front at the beginning. So we had a tower for the entrance. That's what the owner wanted. So we did try to create that void in front by having that balcony up there, and the entrance, the roof, and the stuff that we have, the stone wall that we have at the entrance, somehow highlighting the entrance. So we made that lower too. That was pretty high too. So in terms of making the floor plan a split level, I think because the owner had a big problem with that. We did talk about that with him. We tried to convince him, but again, because in terms of for the children and having the steps inside, it was gonna create some problems for him. So I would assume if you take out those stepping walls, that would help us a lot in terms of reducing, not actually reducing the mass, but when you look at the house, you feel like it's much lower than what it is. And then there was another comment for the roof deck that we have above the garage. As you can see, the uniqueness of the site because of the hill that it's located in. So we tried to give some sort of a space to the owner to somehow use that to have a backyard and to use that the steep site that he has. So in terms of like maybe planting some stuff over there and using that site, we could take out the roof deck and have it a pitched roof as to somehow flow with the same roof design that we have with the house. And Mr. Simonian had some questions about the retaining wall. That retaining wall, at the highest point is 15 feet, then it goes down to like 14, 13 feet, but it is 15 feet. Maybe that was a good comment to add some sort of vegetation or something underneath the wall. So that could be reduced, or again, like you feel like you introduce some green to the backyard. That was a good comment that could be done easily, I guess. And if we push the garage towards the Solway Street, it could be done. Again, that's something that if you look at the plan, you see that radius, so we could do that. But again, that backyard would be fairly small, and the owner again wanted to have a backyard, some usable backyard. I know there is the hill, but that part is not usable. So by pushing the garage a little bit further back, so we're trying to create that space for him to be able to use. And there was another good comment for the left side, that retaining wall that we have. We are planning to have some sort of vegetation on top of it and underneath. So that's another good comment, and that could be done for sure. I guess that's all. And you guys have any questions?
Thank you. Does any board members have questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any callers on this item?
Yes, we have one caller, Mr. James Hinton. Mr. James Hinton, you are live on air with the Design Review Board.
Mr. Hinton?
He might have stepped away just because he's been on hold for about 2 hours now. So perhaps we can.
I heard a little bit of feedback, so he maybe it was almost like whispering.
Mr. Hinton?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello, Mr. Hinton. You are live on air with the Design Review Board. Please speak up. Thank you. And thank you for your patience.
Yes, hello?
Yes, go ahead, sir. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, we're here waiting for you.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Do you
we're
hear
here.
me
Please
now?
go ahead. We can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear us? You're on the air, sir. Please go ahead. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir,
Hello?
you're on the air. Please go ahead.
Oh, this is ridiculous. Hello? Huh.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Electronics is not my best suit. Yes, we can hear you. My main concern, having just learned of this yesterday. No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can still hear you. Please, if you have your TV on in the
Can you hear me
background, please
now?
mute that. Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please mute your TV in the background and just listen to the phone, sir.
Hello?
Yes, we can
On
hear
the
you.
air now. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
We are the homeowners below the project at 521. Okay, good. I think we have a delay. We have a delay in the transmission, so I'll try and emphasize. No. The TV is off. Okay, good. You've addressed several of the issues. Hello? Once you turn that on. Okay. We're concerned about the and we're concerned, as you were, of the mass of the building. One of the issues is mass of the building with the neighborhood, which is not compatible at all. Our second issue is parking. we're repeating the transmission.
Yes, sir. You don't have to wait until you hear yourself. Please just keep speaking, and we'll hear you through. But we do have a limit on time here, so please make your points.
The second issue is parking, which is very, very bad now. The other issue is obviously privacy because of the height of the building. Okay. Okay. Tonight was the first time we've learned that the garage will be on the back of the lot, and the driveway will be further exposed clear through. It's a very small lot for that size of driveway. And our retaining wall is much lower than the walking space where the driveway would be. We're not concerned with the pitch of the roof or anything, but the sheer mass of it. Also, they've gone from 900 square feet to over 3,000 square feet, and they're bordered on two sides by mountains.
Okay, sir, your time is up, so we appreciate your calling in. So thank you. Are there any other callers?
There are no other callers on this case.
Okay.
For this case.
I'm sorry, can I interject for 1 second? I just wanted to make clear, we did receive one letter regarding this project, and I think you all were sent or emailed that letter yesterday.
Yes, I remember seeing it.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. The letter is from the same unit. The owner was on the line just now, and the letter was from the tenant. Just clearing it up.
Okay, does the applicant want to take 2 minutes to rebut?
Well, I have a comment about the driveway that the
and I'm sorry. Forgive us, but you're going to have to identify yourself one more time for the viewing audience, please.
From K&M Design. I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys heard me. I'm Arm Bogosian from K&M Design. So for the comment that the owner 521 Solway had for the driveway, well, I guess we talked about it. So if we reduce the width of the driveway to 9 feet and introduce some sort of trees and vegetation between two neighbors, so basically that would be that buffer zone between the driveway and the house next to it. So if you plant some trees and stuff, that would cut that view or whatever concern that owner had. So, and right now, if you look at the pictures of the site, you see that his house is already, there's a wall, there's a retaining wall there, and the house next to it is lower than the subject property. So like that's what's going to happen if we have whatever we do. So we're going to be higher than him. So I guess by planting trees and stuff, that would somehow cut that or create that buffer zone between two lots. And the parking issue that he had, I don't understand. I didn't get that part. It was cutting off, so I didn't understand what he meant by parking. The street has parking issues, or I don't understand what he said.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless there's any new callers, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay. So for board member deliberations, I'll give board member Minas first dibs since he had to wait so long for the first case. So go ahead, Mr. Minas.
Again, my only comment was that about the staff was to kind of eliminate the splitting of the ground floor and just trying to maintain lesser visibility some other ways and means, and I don't know how, what. Again, ground floor for most families, it's a safe haven for toddlers, young kids. And I've got grandchildren, and I know exactly what our concerns are. I mean, we'd like to have the ground floor living space flat, with no steps, so that they won't create any danger. Anyways, that was only my comment. The rest, I agree with the staff report and the comments that were made.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Smith, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you so much. In looking at this project, I see merit in many of these comments that have been made, of course, by staff and by our associates. I'm looking again at the Hillside Development Review Policy and seeing that development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of size, scale, bulk, and mass, roof orientation, setbacks, and site layout. I am not certain that I see that in the proposed design. I think that it's much taller than most of the other houses on the street. There are two-story houses at the end of the street. The scale is quite large. The bulk and mass are both pretty much as big as they can be. I see that none of the trees that are there are being retained. I would imagine the orange tree that's on the side of the driveway now has been there for quite a long time by its white trunk. And I also see in the Hillside Review Policy, one second, let me mute this. The architectural style and architectural elements of infill development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. This design, to me, is not really compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. While it's a perfectly nice design, it's not compatible with the modest scale and styles of the surrounding homes, which doesn't mean it's impossible. The discussion of small children and stairs, I'm very sorry. I grew up in a house that was built in the 1700s that had narrow and steep stairs. And as a baby, the maid yelled at me and I stayed away from them. People have lived with stairs for more than centuries. The house that's being replaced is 640 square feet. I don't know if an intensive evaluation was done. I assume it wasn't, but a family of 4 children and 2 parents lived there for about 20 years. So they managed to survive in 640 square feet, which fit into the neighborhood. I note that the white stucco isn't very consistent with the design guidelines regarding colors that blend with the hillsides. I'm not sure what the color of the mortar would be with the faux stone, but I'm going to make a crazy recommendation and say that that in hillside areas, under the hillside design guidelines, under finish and materials, it says natural materials should be used wherever possible. And I am going to recommend that if stone is proposed in the design, it should be actual stone, not cementitious aggregate and iron oxide pigments, because faux stone on a hillside looks like fake stone, not natural materials. I'm trying to run through my notes as we go. The entrance looks extremely ornate, and if the size and the scale of the house and the second floor is just as wide as the first floor, so if that were set back and reduced in width, it would reduce the apparent mass of the second floor and help it disappear. The expressed columns that were recommended by staff, I get where you all were going, but in order to be compatible with the neighborhood, the design guidelines would actually result in no decorative columns at the entrance. So I would recommend there not be columns at the entrance. And I would recommend that the mature trees that are in the front of the property, as well as that oak tree that's of course protected, be at least looked at and seen if they can be retained. I notice also that the segmental arch in the entry, and then there are two half-round arches above, are really an inconsistent design vocabulary, and I'm not certain where they were going with that. Staff has mentioned the window size and so forth. There's not really a clear hierarchy of these design elements as directed in the design guidelines. I mentioned before that there are only 2 homes on the block that are 2-story, so it's not a predominant pattern. In that single family neighborhood, it will be the largest and the tallest. So I do not believe that it would be compatible with its surroundings. So if the second floor were reduced in width and stepped back, it could start helping with this. The garage door is noted in the plans. I think the string is going to the flat roof of the garage, but I am assuming that the proposed garage door is not Class A shingles as shown in the east elevation on sheet A 6.0. And I think it would be important to know what that garage door material is going to be, because it's going to be visible from the street. I absolutely appreciate that light fixtures were included in the application. They're super contemporary. I love that they wash the walls, but they're not very compatible with the current design. Maybe a design that goes with those light fixtures would be more compatible with the neighborhood as an infill project rather than sort of a castle that points to itself. The public comment regarding parking, I'm not certain if they mean during construction. I think it will be a struggle for everyone. I note that this house is more than 2 times the size of the average residence within 300 feet, which is considerably larger. The setback is really pretty minuscule. And if the average is 16 and this is 15, it's really pretty small. And by not having any trees in the front, it further makes it seem like a castle set on the street edge. The FAR of 0.40 as proposed for that neighborhood is, while it may be technically legal, it's gargantuan, and it doesn't really, it's not very compatible with the neighborhood. While I understand that staff works really hard to move things through and to work very amicably with applicants, I believe that 14 conditions are too many, and that that staff should work with applicants before we receive designs rather than after. And I'll see what everyone else has to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member Smith. Board Member Simonian? Board Member Simonian, you're still on mute.
I apologize. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo most of the comments that have been made thus far by the fellow board members. I do live in the Chevy Chase Canyon, so I do know the area quite well. This is a street in the beginning of the canyon, and it is a very short street, as you might say. It's not a thorough street, but nonetheless, it has a certain feel to it. And this house as proposed, the design of the house as proposed, is large and has a more vertical feel to it than the surrounding context. Now, shape of the lot is kind of narrower in the front as it gets wider in the rear. And so you're no matter how you go about doing it, you're going to have somewhat of an irregular design. But if you were, let's say, to have your garage in the front and then the second floor completely set back, you would minimize some of these factors. However, the garage is placed in the rear, which is probably a more successful move in itself. But that said, the roof deck above the garage, I think, is certainly incompatible because it would create issues with surrounding neighbors. And so there might have not been that many people that have called in because there might be just a lot of renters in the area, but that would change over time. And the rear balcony, I think, is also ill-placed. Some site planning, perhaps, to better work with the rear retaining wall. If it's getting closer to 15 feet, it's already at the maximum. But there is an opportunity to create a second terrace of some sort above that area, so you have some extra yard. And so then you probably will not need that balcony at the rear. The balcony in the front, I think if it turns into a mansard roof, will probably minimize some of the features. I do think that the second story could benefit from stepping back and to reduce size, and 3,200 or whatever square feet that as proposes is at the maximum FAR, and it should be reduced quite a bit, I think. Maybe 10, 20, 30% less to try to have more of a compatible building. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. For my comments, I agree with Board Member Simonian and Board Member Smith. The size and the scale of the project are definitely out of scale for the neighborhood. I'm not opposed to a second story or a two-story house, and I recognize that this lot definitely has its challenges. But I live on a very steep lot as well, and as Board Member Simonian suggested, we have terracing in our backyard, so it steps up and it gives us more ability to use that space. I concur with the comment about the size of it. It is, almost 3 times the size of the average house, and I'm sure over time more houses will be expanded, and the existing house is quite small. So I recognize that a larger home can be done here, but I think maximizing it is not the right call here. And anytime I see a board report with 14 conditions, frankly, anything more than 5 or 6, makes me question, are we really seeing a completed design here? So I think that, there's consensus here that we could approve it with the conditions, but I don't know if anyone else listened to the city council the other night where they were discussing one of our cases that had been appealed, and there was lots of talk amongst the council members about that the DRB should be doing more returns for redesign in cases of this nature. So those are my comments. Does anyone else want to chime in with any further thoughts? Nope. Is anyone in mind to make a motion?
To return for redesign with staff's stated conditions. And if there are any additional conditions that staff believes were raised by the board that are not covered by staff's conditions, I welcome discussion in order to include them.
Board Member Simonian, you actually mentioned reducing by 10 to 20% the size of the structure. I think other board members agreed that it was too large a size. Would other members feel the same, that that's the right approach, 10 to 20%?
For me, I would say something at least in that range, 20% or potentially even more.
give you a
I agree.
Guidelines, you know.
Yeah, that's right. We're not just talking about 100 square feet. There wouldn't have to be some massive kind of a redesign to it.
I think we mentioned stepping back the sides of the second floor to push that in and push that back. It's covered in the guidelines. I think the one issue that you brought up, Board Member Simonian, was the garage location. But we were looking at this in terms of what the predominant pattern was when this was done.
I don't have a problem with it being placed at the rear. I think if it's at the front, you could have some solution to that back.
You're still on mute.
And I think the other, all of the other issues will really, I mean, this is a redesign. This will take major movements, but I think we understand what the intentions are in terms of the privacy issues of the balconies, and then also applying the conditions and what we were looking at.
Okay, so Mr. Simonian had made a motion. Is there a second?
Aye.
Okay. Roll call, please.
A motion was made by Mr. Simonian, seconded by Board Member Smith, return for redesign. Board Member Minos?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
And Chair Welch?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously 4-0.
Okay, so next item is for Mr. Dennis Joe. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I will try to make this presentation concise, but to the point. So the next item before you is located at, there we go. Sorry, I had to get something straight in my end. This project's located at 1818 Crestmont Court. It involves a 406 square foot first level addition and a 967 square foot new second story to a one-story single-family residence. Just briefly go over the project site's context. The property is generally located in the Verdugo Woodlands neighborhood. It's an interior lot. It's approximately 6,000 square feet. It's zoned R1R. The topography is relatively flat. It has a subtle and a gentle downward slope, which begins from the street towards the rear. And continuing the context, this is slides of the photographs of the property. The two at the top are taken from the street. The bottom left is of the rear of the building, and the bottom right is looking at the side, taken from the driveway and looking at the front entry. The first and second level additions will be located at the rear of the lot and along the eastern interior yards. It's located away from Crestmont Court. It will be configured with code compliant setbacks, and it will not affect the street front setbacks and it will not affect the prevailing setback pattern of the. Just to give you a little idea of what's going on in the floor plan, outlined in green is the first level addition. It's the first floor plan. It's going to accommodate a new master bedroom, new master bath, a walk-in closet, and they're going to do some interior models for the areas of the office and the dining room. Moving to the second floor. Oops, sorry, missed too fast. On the second floor, this will accommodate 2 bedrooms, a laundry room, and a new guest suite. This slide here is of the elevations. The top elevation is the street-facing facade. Outlined in green is the new second-story addition. Overall, it's located in a neighborhood with 1- and 2-story single-family residence. Staff believes it's consistent with the neighborhood's buildings and overall context. Above the roof of the second story is a shed roof design, which provides visual interest. However, staff has a minor comment, particularly to redesign the projection of the roof above the second floor, which is outlined in green on this slide here, to reduce the area's mass and scale to allow for better integration with the portions of the first level. And what staff is really trying to get to with that recommendation is to redesign the shed roof above that most forward volume, which was the guest room on the second floor, with a forward slope roof. That would help out eliminating that additional projection of the shed roof as it goes closer to the street. And we just feel that that can help with some massing and also can better integrate the overall design. And this is just additionally moving on to the east and west facades. The perceived massing is reduced as the new second story will be set back from the first level, which will be 15 feet from the street-facing facade. And then there will be a minor 2-foot step back along the eastern interior yard with the adjacent neighbor where the addition's at. The architectural concept of the second level addition, as we believe, is successful, and it's configured with the appropriate massing. Overall, the quality materials are of quality, which are horizontal cementitious fiberboard sidings, stucco, asphalt shingles. The windows will be aluminum clad wood, and will be installed with an approximate 1-inch recess via an offset nailing fin. The operations will consist of a mix of casement, hopper windows, and will have a multi-light pattern which vary according to the window sizes. However, staff has a minor critique in regards to the abrupt change of the exterior material at the street-facing facade. The slide before you is of the street-facing elevation. Outlined in green is the siding, and then in orange is the stucco, and they're on the same plane, which is separated by a 1-inch reglet, which is outlined in blue. The design guidelines recommend that the finished materials wrap around an exterior corner and terminate an inside corner to alleviate the appearance of a wallpaper application. Staff understands that if the siding were to continue across the volume, it would create like a unbalanced application of the horizontal siding up on the second floor. So as a result, a condition would be to recommend that the cladding design be revised to better integrate with the appearance of the first and second level to allow the cladding to be terminate in logical locations where there is a change of plane. And of course, this recommendation is calling for this revision of materials be reviewed by staff prior to plan check submittal. Overall, before I conclude my presentation, staff did receive 2 comment letters. One of support by Kathy Mafopoulos. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. But also a letter of opposition from Mahara Ghazalians. And I'm going to try to do my best to summarize it, her opposition and her concerns. She had concerns that the addition was inappropriate for the small size of the lot. It's large, and she described it as like a high-rise. Believes it creates a precedence for this dead-end neighborhood where once this goes larger, then it will create a precedence where everyone else is going to go with larger buildings as well. But both of these letters were sent to the board and were emailed to each board member. And this concludes staff's presentation. Overall, we do recommend approval with conditions. If the board member would like, I can read the conditions that were outlined in the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Joe or staff? No? Okay. Do we have the applicant ready to go?
Good evening, board. My name is Ben Curtis Sturgill. I'm with the Sturgill Associates Architects. I'm the applicant.
And this screen
I'm so sorry. I'm struggling with my WebEx.
Yeah, we see all your emails there.
Oh. Where the stop is. Apologize.
Thank you.
My colleague.
All right. So again, my name is Ben Curtis Sturgill. I'm an architect. My address is 314 East Broadway in Glendale. I'm helping the applicant with the presentation of the project. We concur with the staff's report. We'd be more than happy to work with the staff on integrating the exterior materials and the roof on the little offset of the second floor. I do want to point out that the applicant submitted a number of letters from adjacent property owners in full support, and I'm not quite sure why they weren't mentioned in the staff report, but they were all in support, and we can provide those to the staff later on if needed. I'm also available to answer any of your questions. We've been trying to be very sensitive to the neighborhood, and we've set the second floor back considerably on the home. We've taken an account of an offset to stay away from the east property line for the second floor as well, for privacy issues. And also you may notice that there are very few windows on the neighbor or side property lines. We have a few, one because of bedrooms and code compliance of those rooms. We need to have egress windows. But for the most part, we are trying to be very sensitive to the neighborhood and privacy issues that a second story addition may pose. We selected the roof slope as a shed roof towards the south, mainly because in the future, the applicant is desirous of installing solar, and in their opinion and mine as well, it's nice to have a south rear slope roof so the solar panels are not visible from the street. That's one of the main issue of why the slope of the roof is directed towards the south. And we recognize the fact that doing so creates a situation where the front of the building is a little higher than intended or needed to be, but at the same time trying to be ecological sensitive and trying to be solar compliant. It is a must to have it on the south face. Also here to present any or answer any of your questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgill, and thank you for that explanation. I was actually going to ask you whether you had considered an alternate slope for the roof, so that gives me an explanation as to why you selected this way. Do any board members have other questions that they would like to ask the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I guess we can, do we have any callers on the line?
Yes, we do. We have one caller, Ms. Kathy Moropoulos. Oh, forgive me for mispronouncing the last name. You are live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Yes, hello.
Hello, you're live on the air. Thank you.
Oh, yes, hi. Well, I'm going to turn off this other noise so that you can't hear it. I am one of the neighbors, and I've been here 17 years. And our neighborhood is a...
Can you please state your name for the record here?
Oh, so sorry. My name is Kathy Moropoulos, and I live on the street. Okay? Can I speak now?
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
So what I was going to say is that on this Crestmont Court has about 12 homes, and we're actually very good friends with each other. We do, when it's not COVID, we do neighborhood parties and so forth. We know each other quite well. And we were super excited when the present owner bought this property because it was so tiny and out of keeping with the neighborhood. I'll give you an example. Is 4 of the homes on this small courtyard are second stories. My square footage is 2,800. There's another one that has the Kims, who have a square footage of like 3,000, 1,825. That's more of the range. Whereas this home really stood out as being uniquely tiny and in pretty rough condition. So they brought it up to good condition, but it's still really tiny. So when they walked around and asked people, do they support it, everybody on the street is actually super excited about it. So I just wanted to let you know that the person, whoever wrote the other letter, doesn't understand our neighborhood, doesn't understand our street. The concept that it's too big or that other people are going to be encouraged to build doesn't understand the square footage of the other homes. So I just wanted to say very strong support from a very enthusiastic neighbors for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Are there any other callers?
There are no other callers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jump in to acknowledge the design review board first. The neighbors wanted a bigger house.
Okay. Mr. Simonian, you wanted to raise a point?
Yes. Applicant mentioned that there was a list of supporters. Is that something that is in the packet or could be forwarded to us or shared with us? Or is that the neighbors on the specific block that the last caller was referring to?
Dennis, are you able to answer that?
I'm looking through my emails right now. I know I sent what I'm aware of. Those are the only 2 I recall. I'm scouring my emails right now, but I don't see them quite yet. And I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I don't have them. But
okay. All right, so where were we? So I believe the applicant, Mr. Sturgill, has an opportunity to rebut if he chooses to. I don't think there's really anything to rebut, but Mr. Sturgill, you have a couple of minutes if you'd like. 2 minutes. You're on mute, sir.
Okay, sorry. Well, I appreciate the call from Ms. Mafopoulos. The letters we definitely could send to Dennis this evening, or maybe in a few minutes, if you'd like. That's or we can produce those, for staff later. That's all I really wanted to say about that.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I guess we can close the public hearing and move to board member comments. I think board member Smith, it's your turn to go first this time.
Thank you very much, Chair Welsh. I think adding a second floor to this property is entirely reasonable. I do have issues in interpreting the design guidelines and this proposed design a little bit. I will tell you, I was confused by the existing house, so I looked at some Google photos of what it used to look like. Would it be possible to allow me to share so that I could just show what it looked like a few years ago for everyone's edification? I don't know who can give me the share.
You can just share.
Okay, I'll just share. 1 second, apes, hold on. Let me open it. So it was a classic minimal traditional residence. I'm not sure who or when it was changed, but it had board and batten siding, which it still has under the porch, and it had, I think, stucco for the bay that that protrudes from there protrudes. The windows that were there, all the windows except the kitchen window. Sorry, I can't figure out how to do this quickly enough, and you guys don't want to see my emails. The windows were all kind of softened by shutters on each of them. And if you can picture this house with the roof and all the porch having extended rafter tails instead of that fascia that goes over it, and shutters on the windows, the house makes more sense. I'm not at all opposed to a contemporary addition, but in looking at this, the proposed front, which I get the west-facing use of solar and so forth, it doesn't really look like a facade. It just sort of looks like parts that are left over. What I think it needs is some articulation, a reduction of the apparent mass at the front, and I think reconsidering the second floor should be behind the existing roof ridge. And I say that almost always, just allowing that front plane of the roof to express itself would leave the house more intact instead of cutting it off. And considering some sort of more roofs than were recommended by staff, but a way to soften that second story. It might even have a low sloping roof like the top story, but perhaps lower walls where it would align more with the design of the existing house. Currently, it doesn't really align or coordinate with it. And the proposed design takes what's there, which has been altered a lot, and just sort of further alienates it from the universe, unfortunately. I would recommend the use of stucco and board and batten. There isn't really a precedent for hardy board. You might be getting the feeling I'm not a fan of it, but this is not up to my personal opinion. So considering its previous appearance, I think it would be softened greatly to use some of those tricks, and it can still be contemporary, but a little bit more reference to the traditional. I want to share my screen. 1 second. Let me open this if I can. I know this is a crazy bombshell. Sorry. Am I sharing now? Ooh. 1 second.
Not yet.
Okay, good. 1 second, please. I thought I had it queued up and I don't. I'm not doing a good job of it. Never mind. It was a perfectly normal, minimal traditional house, and by putting it somewhat back to a modernized version of that perfectly normal, minimal traditional house, the components are there, and the second story would be more intuitive than what's proposed, which just seems like it doesn't really belong in a residential neighborhood. I don't think it's that compatible, but I don't think it's that far from being entirely compatible, if that makes sense. So,
okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Simonian, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a very square lot, and so that in itself presents very unique design challenges because if you have kind of a narrow, deeper lot, like a very typical 50 by 100, it allows you to obviously have more flexibility to push a house back, to push a second story back, to even not have a second story and to expand the first story back, whatever the case may be. But once you end up with a square lot like this is, you end up having some design challenges in that if you're trying to get some square footage out of the given house, you have to go to a second level. And given the fact that there are existing second levels up and down the street, it's a smaller street. There was a caller that called in supporting it. There was obviously some support letters that the architect is referring to from the immediate neighbors. There seems to be a general consensus and support to modernize and bring this house to the 21st century. So I don't particularly have any issues with really the second story, the placement of it, etc., because there's somewhat limited. I think where I find some room for improvement is on the south elevation. You as proposed, you have this kind of a straight wall, and then you have, as has been already pointed out, somewhat of simple design language, but it's not cohesive yet, is the way I would describe it, in that the roofs really need to be, I think, undulated a bit better to kind of reduce the boxiness. And I think there needs to be a better focus on the variety of windows. For example, on the north elevation, the street elevation, you have some gridded windows, you have some square gridded windows, you have some rectilinear vertical, gridded windows, and then you have some more of a horizontal ribbon windows without any grids. And I think that in itself is causing some misalignment of cohesiveness. And so if the proportionality of the windows are kind of maintained, if we're going to go with gridded, let's go with gridded. If we're not going to go with gridded, which I think is the better way to go without grids in this specific scenario, then you go with it. I think if you're going to have any kind of a juxtapositioning of the smooth plaster with the siding, I would create some color with the siding. Maybe the siding becomes a bit darker, and so there's more of a contrast. And I think there's an opportunity to, as I mentioned, blend in the roofs with some pitch roofs to make it more cohesive. And so I think there needs to be, per staff's comments and even continuing some of that discussion of working the roofs. This might not be the kind of home that you're going to get a ton of solar on, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But if you're trying to create less of a boxy feeling, I think you start with the roofs and the window proportionality, and that's going to get you mostly there. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. Board Member Minas?
Yes, I also agree with Mr. Simonian that, noting the shape of the property, the design of the addition and expansion beyond the footprint of the existing building, it is challenging. You have to, you cannot push the entire second floor back because there's not much space, and there's some challenges. So if they can improve the appearance of the building through, having a uniform type of appearance of the windows, I'll also agree with Mr. Simonian that is going to be a great improvement on the appearance of the building. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. For my comments, I largely concur with all of my colleagues here. I had also made note about the windows that I didn't think that they were quite successful in how they were done, and the juxtaposition of horizontality versus verticality. I think, Mr. Simonian's comments are apt. I was also thinking about the board's the staff's condition about the edging of the surface treatments, and wondering how that can be accomplished. Perhaps some additional depth articulation in that facade, that it doesn't have to be just a single plane on that second floor. Overall, I think the design is okay. I would have preferred to have seen the shed roof sloping in the opposite direction. So I think that would have cut down on the massing of the house and its appearance from the street. But clearly, we don't have a lot of neighborhood opposition here, and I understand the rationale behind it. I think staff suggestion of putting a little forward sloping section on that guest room portion that juts out, I think is an appropriate solution for that. And so that's my comments. So I think we have some broad consensus here, but does somebody want to take a stab at making a motion here?
I move to approve the project with the stated conditions. In addition, adding at least two conditions from what I see, and perhaps more after our discussion. First being applicant shall continue undulating the roof forms to create less of a bulky appearance and to create more of a cohesive design. Another condition would be applicant shall use a single window style and shall design the windows in a more comprehensive manner to further the design language.
Could the board members just help me understand the first additional condition about articulating the roof form? Is that something similar to what's happening at the guest room, where there might be another projection that might also have a sloping roof, and that would allow for the termination of the siding material? Or is there something I'm missing there?
That might work because that would align with my notion of having some additional undulation in the surface. So if you brought that portion forward maybe a little bit with the shed roof, forward-facing shed roof on that section.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in and ask if no one was interested in having shutters here or there, like the minimal traditional house it has been.
I don't. Reason being, I think that, and for this reason, I think, you know, some of the design material board features that the architect has placed kind of in the back end of the package. For example, you know, after the material board, if you kind of go two more pages, it starts having some imagery of this kind of simpler shaped buildings with metal roofs, simple windows, very clean, contemporary look. And I don't think shutters is the direction that the architect's trying to go. I think the renderings, if they were better depicted, might have had more of the spirit of what the architect was trying to accomplish, but I'm not getting the sense that's the direction he's going. And by the way, the windows as depicted on those material board, on those pages where it says contemporary design windows and patio doors by Lincoln Contemporary Design, I think if you end up going with those kind of metal windows, it would really add to the flavor of this building, because that's a very crisp, modern look.
If I can throw out a suggestion, Dennis and I, when we were reviewing this, were thinking about it would be nice if we could still have siding at the front porch, as Board Member Smith is remembering from the previous version of the house. And we had the problem that if we did that, it would, by our guidelines, have to wrap around the side, and then where would it stop? There was no logical place. What I'm thinking all of a sudden with the porch, if we created kind of a pilaster type column against the wall at the right corner of the front porch, so that we'd have, you know, the 4 or 6 inch projection, whatever the column size is. We could get horizontal siding at the porch also, which I think might also start tying the first and second levels together. But I'm just being spontaneous there if you're interested in that.
I think that's a good solution, Jay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I did note that the lack of that siding there in that location didn't lend itself to being tied in. So I think that would be good.
Okay. Wish I thought of it before, but better late than,
I mean, just a couple of thoughts, and these aren't so much so far as putting conditions on this, but just as trying to help the architect in a way. I think the columns are a bit slender in the front. I think there's something to be done there. Also, a building could really, I think, benefit from a base of some sort, and I think a very kind of a board form concrete base. Think of it that way, with your very, kind of a smooth plastered stucco coupled with a bold kind of 12-inch horizontal siding as we're depicting, with clear non-gridded windows, black anodized window frames, would really start to pop this thing, especially if you recess those windows. So those are just some thoughts as far as where you could take this language of this design. Again, I'm not saying let's make that a condition, but I'm just kind of throwing out a language here.
Would that be a consideration or just guidance for the architect?
Consideration is fine. Consideration, guidance.
If we were to do that, I'm presuming it would just be on the left side of the front facade under those two windows, and then wrapping to the chimney, or I guess wrapping to the new addition at the back on the left side of the house.
It could terminate on the right side where those stairs are going up to that side entrance or something like that. Or those side entrance stairs could be on the same concrete that kind of translate itself up.
But would you want to see it balanced on the left and right sides, or just on perhaps the left side? Thinking once we add it at the porch, it becomes a little.
I don't want to prescribe it to that level, Jay. I think it was just a thought, a language that just.
So, Jay, are you able to read back a list of conditions?
Yes, we can. Starting up at the roof, we'll provide additional articulation at the second floor roof, which would mean another projection forward or something to allow another sloping roof to come forward and create a more varied roof line. We'll use a much simplified window kind of concept that in terms of both pattern, style of the windows, and I believe I hear everyone prefers a no grid solution to the gridded solution. I think the staff comments will still stand for the most part. Let me jump back to those. Oops. Yeah, the staff conditions will still stand. And then we just discussed the possibility of putting siding at the front porch. Would that be a consideration or a condition?
That would be a consideration to me.
I'm fine with either.
And then board member Simonian said that the columns are too slender. Is that something people agree with, or consideration for larger, wider?
I think the columns are actually fine.
Okay, then that's everything that I've got then.
So far, I think we began with a motion started by board member Simonian. And he started off the condition. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so I have a motion by board member Simonian, a second by board member Minas. This will be roll call. Board member Minas?
Yes.
Board member Simonian?
Yes.
Board member Smith?
The most polite no ever.
And Mr. Chair Welch?
Yeah. Yes.
So the motion stands with the 3-1 vote.
Thank you. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.